So let's start from probably the news that Quantron has delivered the first 5 fuel cell electric light duty trucks. This news is very interesting for me personally because just several weeks ago I was in Quantron in Augsburg city. It's very close to Munich, gas company that also invested money into Quantron to develop alternative energy. So they started at the beginning with electrical cars, and they made several cars for IKEA on electrical propulsion. But after that, they started to develop gaseous hydrogen fueled trucks working with various suppliers of fuel cells. So first of all, they started with Ballard, that also became the sponsor and shareholder, of Quantron. And now they are purchasing big numbers of these fuel cells for installing on their trucks. That, as you understood from the news, must be delivered for IKEA, also like previous electrical. So, and now Quantron is discussing with all shareholders and potential partners to convert their gaseous hydrogen trucks onto liquid hydrogen fuel trucks. Why? Because it will give these trucks more opportunity for getting much more distance that they had before, and decrease some expenditures for maintenance during road driving and refueling and so on. So, for example, the new fuel tanks that could be installed with liquid hydrogen will provide 1,200 kilometers on one refueling for such trucks. And of course, it's not for IKEA. IKEA, it's quite small distance for each transportation because it's short distance delivery mostly from the stock in the city to houses and flats not far from the stocks, and they don't need long distance fueling for their fuel trucks. But for big trucks with big trailers, with huge weight of load capacity, so it does matter. And I think that they will continue the investigations and cooperations with guys who will be developing for them liquid hydrogen fuel tanks, refueling stations, and of course infrastructure for manufacturing of this liquid hydrogen, because it's absent today, this infrastructure in Europe, and maybe in the United States much more significant number of such refueling stations, with liquid hydrogen and manufacturing of liquid hydrogen there, but in Europe, no. So that's why it will be very interesting when Quantron will be pioneer in the development of liquid hydrogen using in transportation by trucks, different kinds of goods. So it's the first news. So the second news that I wanted to discuss, company HH2E presented the 100 megawatt green hydrogen production plant project at the site of the former nuclear power plant in Ludmin. So it's the big problem using of the sites of nuclear power stations in Germany, you know, that previous government of Angela Merkel, they closed nuclear power stations because of pressure of Green Party, of course, but also based on some own understanding of energy development in Germany. They faced with a lot of problems during the crisis with the Russian gas, and they stopped a little bit shutting down these nuclear power stations, but finally they decided to finish this procedure and to close these nuclear power stations. And the development of two energy systems of neighbor countries like France and Germany from now will go separately. So France will be still orienting on nuclear energy, but Germany will dramatically develop new energy like wind generation, solar generation, maybe wave, because they have a lot of territory with a bank on Baltic Sea and Northern Sea, so that's why they can use offshore power generation stations using wind power and wave power for production of energy. So that's why this initiative is quite interesting, because it will give German government opportunity to use the big territories of nuclear power stations that can't be immediately closed and demolished, because some procedures. I worked in nuclear area long-term period, and I closed power station in Kozloduy, and it took so many years to realize the project for shutting down of reactors. So that, and during this period, you can't do anything with this territory, so it can't be secured. It's the life and personnel must continue to work there, and in emergency they can react for some challenges on these stations, and it gives these guys or other initiators of different kinds of energy projects, including hydrogen production projects, to have this stuff for supporting of the initiative on the sites, using already existing regular grid and some support energy equipment that they already have. You know that they have sub-transformator stations on their sites. They have usually a lot of stations. They have storages for hydrogen, because hydrogen are using for cooling of reactors, and so they can also be involved in this new project. And we will wish this HH2E company good luck. The initiative could open new area of implementation of energy technologies on these so-called forbidden sites in Germany, that anyway will need to have enough staff to support closing and shutting reactors. But this support could be converted into real programs for development of hydrogen energy there. The next news that we could discuss It's initiative of company Sunreef that started to develop sailing yacht with hydrogen generator on board. So it's not unusual today. You know that several hydrogen-fueled, hydrogen propulsion vessels are already existing and sailing in different seas. But you know that when you are talking about yachts, so it means that sometimes types of entertainment on sea entertainment will also be developing with hydrogen. I know that different kinds of races are already developing, and look, some arrangers of these races are looking on hydrogen as a fuel for their yachts that will participate in these races. And we can also switch on immediately on news very close to Sunreef Yachts initiative that Air Products decided to supply hydrogen to power zero-emission chase boats at America's Cup in Barcelona. So you know that sometimes sport could be the driver for new technologies, and especially some technical types of sport, like Formula One. So where new technologies in car manufacturing are testing, and after that, including in regular manufacturing of cars. Here we see the same initiative probably to start to use special boats, hydrogen fueled, to participate in very specific races in Mediterranean Sea in Barcelona, or maybe third one about shipment in shipbuilding with hydrogen. It's about Mitsubishi Shipbuilding Company, subsidiary of Mitsubishi Group, but they decided to use ammonia, green ammonia, in propulsion system, and I think that for my understanding, so I'm not sure that it's a good idea to use ammonia as a fuel. I worked a lot with LNG bunkering, so and all of those who participate in LNG bunkering business faced with a lot of problems for receiving permits from local authorities and port authorities for shipping with liquid natural gas, even with liquid natural gas. So, and when some guys started to test methanol or ammonia, they faced with the same problems that some ports were against for the bunkering of such vessels in their port to store this fuel, ammonia or methanol, because they are very hazardous. So, and demands for refueling of methanol and ammonia are much more stronger than even liquid hydrogen, because of some poisonous options with this fuel. So that's why the development of green ammonia, when you simultaneously face on the market black ammonia made from steam reformer processes from regular gas chemical plants, and very, very cheap, so we can not evaluate the right source of this ammonia. Would it be green? Would it be gray? Or would it be black finally? So, if it is green ammonia, so the cost will be in 7 times more than regular ammonia. So if you put yourself on the place of ship owner, so why do you need to use very expensive ammonia if you already have ammonia fuel the vessel? You will find the way how to call gray ammonia by green name and to use it. And after that, so we will face with a lot of problems that no one can, or very few producers of green ammonia will find market for that. And after that, they will face with a lot of problems with port authorities, how to use it, how to refuel it. So, and maybe in Baltic Sea, you will have 1 or 2 places only where you can provide bunkering by ammonia. And what kind of ammonia you will have after that. So, and also when we're talking about some pollutions, and when we worked in LNG bunkering business, we started it because of sulfur pollution. So, and the new demand, new requirements for reduction of sulfur pollutions in that period. So they need to decrease these pollutions before 2020. And unfortunately, they didn't fulfill 100% these new requirements, and now it just postponed some requirements, and we didn't see very aggressive penalties against ship owners to push on them to reduce these pollutions. But also, as you remember, that IMO claimed about the reduction of NOx pollutions until 2025. So it will be in 2 years. But if you are starting to use ammonia, you will continue to produce NOx and to pollute it into the air. So what's the reason of using NOx in shipping? I don't know. Frankly speaking, I don't know. In case of just transportation of hydrogen, it's also the problem, because guys on other territory, when must be recipient of this hydrogen, they must have quite huge plant for restoring of this hydrogen from ammonia. So I understood that mostly Japanese company are trying to do it. So they are doing it because I think that they want to transport hydrogen by sea mostly, and in this case, of course, ammonia it's the best kind of transportation of hydrogen. But finally, you will spend so much money for production of, first of all, green hydrogen, after that ammonia. Transportation is quite specific chemical tankers, and finally for restoring of hydrogen from ammonia, with understanding what will you do with nitrogen after that. So that I think finally you will calculate that it will be platinum hydrogen, platinum. So there is no reason to do it. But Japanese Mitsubishi, Kyoto, they are so arranging a lot of propaganda about this type of transportation and using of hydrogen. But I think when the technology of direct manufacturing gaseous hydrogen from seawater will be developed and it will be quite cheap, I think they will forget about this ammonia implementation of hydrogen. So, and they will develop it in your country without long distance transportation from, I don't know, from Trinidad and Tobago or Australia, so from some very far distance that they are trying to build this net today. So next news about Chinese. You know that Chinese are building huge capacities of solar farms, and most of these farms will be working only on hydrogen production. So it means that, and this news I wanted to read this article, China's first large-scale green hydrogen project with photovoltaic power completed. So, and the operator of this project is Sinopec. Sinopec, you know, it's China Petroleum and Chemical Corporation. So the biggest company in China and oil and gas company previously, and now they are converting their efforts onto new energy, and they are building a lot of facilities, new energy facilities oriented on hydrogen production. So it's very interesting, and they will build hydrogen plant with capacity 20,000 tons a year, and it will be gaseous hydrogen. So they will use pipelines from that point to supply gaseous hydrogen for different consumers inside of China. It will not be export project, but you see that in this case they will just changing natural gas and maybe some kind of heat oil or diesel for local power generation onto hydrogen, pure hydrogen, and this hydrogen will be supplied on power generation stations, and maybe will be used for transportation refueling by compressing of this hydrogen into trucks or cars or buses and so on. So another news, European Commission published terms and conditions ahead of hydrogen bank pilot auction. So it's also interesting because, you know, in Europe, they established Euro-Union Hydrogen Bank, and this bank claimed that they would try to finance different kinds of hydrogen-oriented projects, and maybe hydrogen will be, because of a lot of efforts all over the world, and this EU Hydrogen Bank will be maybe also play quite important role in Europe. So it could be commodities in a few years, and because of appearance of different projects oriented on manufacturing of hydrogen, creation some kind of derivatives on hydrogen manufacturing. So hydrogen refueling stations will be appeared in different areas of Europe, and some storages also will appear not only for hydrogen themselves, but also for energy storage, season, and daily storages. So we will receive, because of these efforts and financing from Europe as a mainly player in the world on hydrogen market. So we will receive new product, new commodity product that will be trading all over the world, not only in Europe, but between countries, between continents, and so we will receive some, as I said, derivatives papers that could be traded on stock exchanges and market exchanges, trade exchanges. So that's why all financial news about hydrogen are more interesting today than some technological initiatives, because I'm sure that technology will be developed anyway, but we need more and more financial instruments to develop these technologies, to extend the implementation of hydrogen in all areas of transportation, in energy, in so house energy, and so on. So we'll be looking on efforts of Euro Union and some American financial authorities, Chinese, but Chinese is the state is financing everything connecting to green energy and hydrogen. So we can be sure that everything will be fine in China with hydrogen very soon. So next news, Matacon and Upwidinge wet gas opened wind-powered hydrogen refueling station. So it's also quite interesting when you combine immediately at one place wind power generation station and hydrogen production. We faced previously with the same applications with solar. So when hydrogen immediately receiving from water using solar power generation stations, and today you see that in Sweden we see the same situation, but with wind power generation stations. So they will produce quite small volume of hydrogen, just 200 kilo per day. But maybe it's enough for small refueling stations in Smoland, and this refueling station could be replaced as a project in other cities of Sweden, and so sometimes we will see a lot of such refueling stations in this Scandinavian country. So it's very interesting that they are trying to do it, and I hope it will help to make so infrastructure for trucks, for buses, for cars that will be using gaseous hydrogen. So in case of using liquid hydrogen, they will need to install quite small liquefiers on this station. I think it's not true, it's not efficient, and it will be better to build bigger electrolyzers, bigger gaseous hydrogen manufacturing site, and simultaneously integrate to this site liquefier for minimum 2.8 tons of hydrogen for following transportation of this liquid hydrogen in 10 containers all over Europe or within some country precisely. So also from north of Europe news, Hydrogen Pro confirms FEED study with Fortum and SSAB at 700 megawatt factory. And this factory will be built, they don't know when, but the FEED will be expected in the second half of 2024, and after that they will need to increase the capacity until 1.2 gigawatt, and all this energy will be converted into hydrogen, as you understood. So we look at Fortum as a big potential player on the hydrogen market because they have in their hands different kinds of power generation. It could be sustainable power generation stations, wind, solar, and also they have control on nuclear power stations in Finland. You know, there are 2 nuclear power stations in Finland, and they have a lot of spare energy that could be converted into hydrogen. And you see that Fortum also, together with other companies, looking at hydrogen manufacturing, discussing another projects for the construction of new energy power stations and converting this energy into hydrogen. Very, very interesting news from German Ham, where Trial gas power plant will be converted onto hydrogen. So and they look to convert the second block of the station onto gas mixed with hydrogen. It's the first step, of course. Sometimes I know it very well because I'm very familiar with different hydrogen turbine producers, and I understand that it's a problem to provide 100% burning of hydrogen inside turbines. So they are trying to use mixture of methane and hydrogen or other hydrocarbons, gaseous hydrocarbons with hydrogen to provide efficiency of the turbine. So pure hydrogen will need very specific afterburner, and it will take time to provide R&D work, but with just mixture of methane and hydrogen. So and here we see that guys will use just 15% hydrogen in this mixture. It's quite easy to convert turbines onto such mixture. So what it will give to them, so they can say, we're moving to sustainable economy from our side. Yeah, we already have 15% in our mixture of feed gas that we're using in our turbines. So the pollution will be less. So and we will be more green than now. but I think it's not so fruitful than to invest into new turbines and to use pure hydrogen for that. Totally exclude natural gas from the feedstock. Very interesting news from Acciona. Acciona, you know, it's a Spanish energy company, and they are working on various hydrogen projects in Spain. They are already built hydrogen pipeline in Navarra. It's the region close to French border. You know, there were two Navarras in medieval age in Spain, in France. Before it was one territory, but now Navarra is only in Spain. So, and I mean, call it Navarra. So, and now Acciona is looking for refinery de Aruba to construct and operate a green hydrogen plant. And it's also quite interesting approach, because, you know, in all refineries with deep processing of oil, they must have hydrogen production unit, but usually it's so-called catalyst reformer, based on catalyst processing of oil. Sometimes there are steam reformer production of hydrogen, but mostly catalyst reformers, and it's so-called black hydrogen or gray hydrogen, so softly calling. And all refineries are looking for conversion of consumption of their hydrogen that they're using in hydrogen purification of diesel and benzene, and also for hydrocracking, of course. They have hydrocracking, so they are consuming a lot of hydrogen all over the world. So, and refineries are biggest producers of hydrogen today, and so if you want to use hydrogen for testing, you can come to refineries and ask them to give you some amount of hydrogen for testing, but it will be, as I said, black hydrogen that can be used if you are thinking about sustainable society. But it's a good option for those who want to produce green hydrogen to have immediately customer for that. Refineries could be consumers of green hydrogen if they want to convert their production from black to green hydrogen. So, and to claim that they are more advanced in green economy than they were before. So, and Acciona are in this trend, and they want to work with the refineries, and they are starting to develop the project with refinery de Aruba. So it's quite positive news also for all companies that are looking for hydrogen manufacturing, that the refineries are opening their wallets to convert their consumption of hydrogen from black to green. It's good news, of course, for all of us. So, another news from Spain. Novara powered hydrogen fuel cells. They shipped their fuel cells to Port of Valencia, and they want to test using of their fuel cells with compressed hydrogen for conversion of port equipment, so loaded equipment mostly, and vehicles working in the port from diesel, or mostly from diesel onto hydrogen. So it's also good news. I know there are a lot of initiatives where before, from Riga port, for example, they wanted to convert all their equipment from diesel onto hydrogen, but someone must start this process, and Novera Fuel Cell LLC, they already started in Valencia. It's quite interesting region because there will be several projects already started for the construction of hydrogen manufacturing units, and on the next step, green fertilizers production. So they will produce green ammonia there in this region. So it means that Port of Valencia will have a lot of hydrogen as a fuel from this manufacturing, not far from them. And this green ammonia, I already described you my impressions about green ammonia, but in case of fertilizers, if, for example, governments all over the world will push on consumers of fertilizers and provide some kind of financial support, subsidize purchasing of green ammonia. So it could be possible, of course, for using in agriculture. For the fuel, I don't believe in ammonia at all, but for fertilizers, in case of subsidizing, only because of green sources of these fertilizers, so it could be effective, of course. So we will see that Valencia becomes maybe one of the first hydrogen hub where different businesses connected to hydrogen using are appearing and developing. So good luck, Novera Fuel Cells. So we'll be look at their successes. So maybe that's all for today. I think that you can see us every Friday. We will try to describe you some more interesting news from the list of news that we will read and we will find during the previous week. And so we will be happy to receive from you some direct information, and we can discuss with you in such short movie Hydrogen Fridays on our blog, on our channel, Hydrogen Wire. Thank you very much. See you next Friday.